I need to know if I'm crazy. Because what I did at that wedding either makes me a hero or the most petty, vindictive person alive. And honestly, I'm still not sure which one. It started 6 months ago when I got a booking request through my photography website. Standard stuff, wedding, outdoor venue, 200 guests. The couple wanted romantic but candid shots. The bride's name was Madison Torres. Didn't ring any bells. The groom's name was listed as Jason. Just Jason. No last name in the initial inquiry. I should have asked more questions. I should have requested their full names before I signed the contract and took their deposit. But I was broke, like really broke, and they were offering $4,500 for 8 hours of work. I'd been living on ramen and protein bars for 2 months, and my landlord was making throat-cutting gestures every time I passed him in the hallway. So I took the job. I didn't find out the groom's last name until I showed up for the engagement photo shoot 3 weeks before the wedding. Jason Mitchell. My Jason Mitchell. Well, not my Jason anymore. My ex-fiancé Jason, who I dated for 4 years, lived with for 2, and almost married until he called off our wedding 6 weeks before the date because he wasn't ready for that level of commitment. That was 18 months ago. Worst year and a half of my life, if we're being honest. So there I am, standing in some fancy botanical garden at sunset, my camera around my neck, watching Jason walk toward me with his arm around this gorgeous brunette who's literally glowing with happiness. And I'm thinking, okay, you can do this. Be professional. It's been a year and a half. You're over him. This is fine. Except it wasn't fine. Because the moment I raised my camera to start shooting, I saw it. The ring. Not just any ring, my ring. The exact ring Jason proposed to me with 4.5 years ago. I'd recognize it anywhere. Vintage Art Deco setting, emerald-cut diamond, intricate platinum filigree on the band. His grandmother's ring, passed down through 3 generations. The ring he'd looked me dead in the eyes and told me he'd return to his mother after we broke up, to keep it safe for the next generation. But there it was, on Madison's finger, catching the golden hour light like it belonged there. I almost dropped my camera. My hands were shaking so bad I had to pretend I was adjusting my lens settings just to buy myself time to breathe. All I could think was, when? When did he give her my ring? How long had they been together? Did he meet her before or after he destroyed my life? Everything okay? Madison asked, tilting her head with concern that seemed genuine. Totally fine, I lied, forcing myself to smile. Just making sure I've got the right settings for this lighting. You two ready? Jason was staring at me. Really staring, like he was trying to figure out if I recognized him. And I realized he absolutely knew who I was when they booked me. He'd seen my name on the contract. He'd approved the deposit payment. This wasn't an accident or an unfortunate coincidence. He'd hired me on purpose. I made it through that engagement shoot on pure autopilot. Smiled, directed poses, made small talk about their love story while my brain screamed. They met at a charity gala, Madison told me, her voice sugary sweet. 2 years ago this October, Jason bid on my auction item, a wine-tasting weekend in Napa, and we just clicked immediately. 2 years ago this October, Jason and I didn't break up until March, a year and a half ago, which meant he'd been with Madison for at least 6 months before he told me he wasn't ready for commitment. He'd probably been planning to propose to her while we were still shopping for wedding venues together. The math made me physically nauseous. I finished the shoot, told them the photos would be ready in a week, and drove home in complete silence. Not music, not podcasts, nothing. Just me and the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with this information. My best friend Rachel came over that night with wine and Chinese takeout. I showed her the photos on my laptop. "That's your ring," she said immediately, leaning closer to the screen. "That's literally your ring, Mel." I was with you when he proposed. I'd recognize that setting anywhere. I know. So he lied. He didn't give it back to his mother. He gave it to her. Rachel jabbed a finger at Madison's smiling face on the screen. This man is unbelievable. What are you going to do? I don't know. Finish the job, I guess? I already signed a contract. Melissa. Rachel grabbed my shoulders and turned me to face her. He hired you to photograph his wedding to the woman he cheated on you with, using the ring he proposed to you with. He did this on purpose. This is psychological warfare. Maybe he just forgot I was a photographer. It's a common job. Your website has your full name and your face all over it. He didn't forget anything. She pulled out her phone and started typing furiously. I'm looking up breach of contract laws. There has to be a way out of this. But there wasn't, not really. Not without losing the deposit and potentially getting sued, which I couldn't afford. I was barely making rent as it was. My photography business was struggling, and I'd already turned down 2 other wedding gigs that same weekend to take Jason's booking. I was trapped. I had to shoot my ex-fiancé's wedding to his mistress-turned-bride, watch him marry her with my ring, and pretend everything was fine. The next 3 weeks were torture. I kept obsessively looking at those engagement photos, zooming in on the ring, comparing it to old photos from when Jason had proposed to me. Same ring. Exact same ring. I wasn't imagining it. I barely slept. I kept having stress dreams where I was at the wedding and my camera wouldn't work, or I showed up naked, or Jason turned into some kind of monster mid-ceremony. Typical anxiety nightmare stuff, except I'd wake up and remember the real situation was somehow worse. The morning of the wedding, I threw up twice before I even left my apartment. Rachel texted me, "You don't have to do this. Seriously, screw the money. Your mental health is worth more." But I went anyway. I loaded up my equipment, drove to the venue, this beautiful estate with gardens and a lake, and started setting up. Professional Melissa. Reliable Melissa. Melissa, who definitely wasn't having a complete emotional breakdown while arranging her telephoto lens. The ceremony was at 4 o'clock. I had my shot list ready, my backup camera charged, my game face on. What I didn't have was a plan for what I was going to do when I actually saw him standing at that altar. The thing about being a wedding photographer is you see everything. You're invisible but everywhere at once, watching the bride get ready, catching the groom's nervous habits, documenting all those little moments people forget they had. You become this weird fly on the wall with expensive equipment and the power to immortalize people's best and worst moments. I'd photographed 43 weddings in the past 3 years. I knew how to spot a groom who was having second thoughts, a bride who'd had too much champagne, family members who secretly hated each other. I knew how to read a room, so when I started shooting Madison getting ready in the bridal suite, I was watching everything. Her bridesmaids were nice, maybe too nice, in that overly enthusiastic way that felt almost rehearsed. They kept gushing about how perfect everything was, how lucky Madison was, how Jason was absolutely the one. One of them, a blonde named Stephanie, mentioned she'd known Jason for years. Since college, actually, Stephanie said while helping Madison into her dress. We were all so surprised when he and his ex split up. They seemed so solid. But then he met you, Mads, and it just made sense, you know? Like the universe corrected itself. I was adjusting my camera settings, pretending not to listen. How long were they together? Madison asked. And my heart stopped. Jason doesn't really talk about her. Oh, years, 3, 4, something like that. They were even engaged for a bit. Stephanie lowered her voice, but not enough. Honestly, I think she was just wrong for him. Too needy, too emotional. Jason needs someone more independent, you know? Someone who gets that he needs space. I had to physically bite my tongue to keep from saying something. Too needy? I'd supported Jason through a career change, through his father's death, through every existential crisis and bad day at work. I'd been so independent, I'd basically lived like a single person while we were engaged, because he was always working late or going out with friends or needing space. But sure, I was the problem. I finished shooting the getting ready photos and moved outside to photograph the guests arriving. That's when I saw Jason's mother, Linda Mitchell, the woman who'd welcomed me into her family, who'd cried happy tears when Jason proposed, who'd held my hand at his father's funeral and told me I was already like a daughter to her. She was standing near the ceremony space, talking to another older woman, and she looked miserable. Not just uncomfortable at a formal event, miserable. Actually sad. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and she kept fidgeting with her necklace, something I'd seen her do 100 times when she was anxious. I shouldn't have done it. I should have stayed in photographer mode, stayed invisible. But I walked over. "Linda?" She turned, and when she saw me, her face went completely white. "Melissa. Oh my God. What are you—" Then she saw my camera. "You're the photographer?" "Yeah. I didn't know it was Jason's wedding when I booked the job." We stood there in this awful silence while other guests milled around us. Finally, Linda grabbed my arm and pulled me away from the crowd, toward a quiet corner near the garden entrance. "Does he know you're here?" she asked, her voice tight. "He's the one who hired me." "Well, Madison did technically, but his name was on the contract. He knew." Linda closed her eyes and muttered something that sounded like a prayer or a curse. I couldn't tell which. When she opened them again, she looked older than I remembered. "That boy. I swear I raised him better than this." "It's fine," I lied. "It's been over a year. I'm fine." "Melissa." Linda's voice cracked. "I need to tell you something. About the ring." My stomach dropped. "You know?" "Of course I know. It was my mother's ring. I gave it to Jason when he wanted to propose to you." She glanced around nervously, making sure no one was listening. "When you two broke up, he told me he was giving it back to me for safekeeping. He said you'd had an amicable split, that you'd both agreed the timing wasn't right. That's not what happened. I know that now." Linda's eyes were watery. "Last month, I saw a photo Madison posted on social media. She was showing off her engagement ring, and I recognized it immediately. I called Jason, asked him what the hell was going on. He told me—" She paused, struggling with the words. "He told me he'd met Madison before you two broke up, that he'd realized he'd made a mistake proposing to you, that he'd never actually wanted to marry you, but he'd felt pressured by everyone's expectations." The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd already suspected most of it. Linda kept going. "He said he didn't want to waste the ring on a false start, so he'd kept it for when he met the right person. Those were his words. A false start. Like 4 years of your life was just some practice run for him." I couldn't breathe, couldn't form words. My hands were shaking so badly I had to lower my camera before I dropped it. "I told him he was making a horrible mistake," Linda continued, her voice fierce now. "That what he was doing was cruel and disrespectful to you, to me, to the memory of my mother who wore that ring for 50 years. But he wouldn't listen. He said I was being dramatic, that this was his life and his choice." She grabbed both my hands. "I'm so sorry, Melissa. If I'd known sooner, I would have demanded he give the ring back to me. I would have called you. Something. Anything." A golf cart pulled up nearby, and someone called Linda's name. The ceremony was about to start. She squeezed my hands once more. "If you need to leave, leave. I won't blame you. Nobody who knows the truth would blame you." But I didn't leave. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. Instead, I watched Linda walk away to take her seat, her shoulders slumped with shame that wasn't even hers to carry. I watched the guests file into their chairs. I watched the string quartet start playing. I watched the groomsmen line up, and then Jason, looking irritatingly handsome in his tuxedo, taking his place at the altar. He saw me. Our eyes met across the garden, and the expression on his face, it wasn't guilt or regret, it was something worse. It was satisfaction, like he'd won some game I didn't even know we were playing. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to just photograph this wedding. I was going to document it. Every detail. Every moment. Because suddenly, I had a feeling this wasn't going to be the fairy tale ending Madison thought she was getting. The processional started. I raised my camera and started shooting. And with every click of the shutter, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't heartbroken Melissa anymore, standing on the sidelines of my own life. I was the one with all the power. I had the camera. I had the truth. I had every moment captured in perfect, undeniable detail. And before this day was over, everyone was going to know exactly what kind of man Jason Mitchell really was. I made it through the ceremony without losing it. Barely. I photographed Madison walking down the aisle in her $1,000 dress, all smiles and happy tears. I captured the moment Jason lifted her veil and kissed her, the way the guests applauded, the way his mother Linda sat perfectly still with her hands folded in her lap, not clapping at all. I documented every reading, every vow, every scripted moment of their perfect love story. And the whole time, all I could see was that ring catching the afternoon sunlight. The reception was being held in the estate's grand ballroom. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, the works. My job was to photograph the entrance, the first dance, the toasts, the cake cutting, all the standard wedding moments people pay thousands of dollars to remember forever. I was setting up near the head table when Madison's maid of honor, a redhead named Claire, approached me with a champagne glass in each hand. "Hey, you want one? You've been working your ass off all day." I probably shouldn't have accepted alcohol while on the job, but my hands were still trembling from the ceremony, and I needed something to steady my nerves. "Thanks. I'm Claire, by the way. Madison's college roommate." She clinked her glass against mine. "You're really good. I've been watching you work. You've got this way of just disappearing into the background. It's like you're not even here." "That's kind of the point," I said, taking a sip. "People act more natural when they forget I'm watching." "Smart." Claire glanced toward the head table where Madison and Jason were holding hands, posing for someone's iPhone photos. "Can I ask you something, and be totally honest?" "Sure." "Do they seem happy to you? Like, genuinely happy?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" Claire lowered her voice, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "I've known Madison since we were 18. I was her roommate all 4 years of college. I've seen her in love before, and this..." She gestured vaguely toward the happy couple. "This doesn't feel the same. It feels performative. Like she's trying really hard to convince everyone, including herself, that this is what she wants." "Maybe she's just nervous," I offered, even though I knew exactly what Claire meant. I'd noticed it too, something brittle and forced in Madison's smile. Maybe, or maybe she knows something's off and she's ignoring it. Claire took a long drink of champagne. She told me she got pregnant 3 months ago. I almost choked. "What?" "Miscarried at 8 weeks. Jason told her they should postpone the wedding, take time to grieve, but Madison insisted on keeping the date. She said she'd already lost the baby. She wasn't going to lose the wedding too." Claire's eyes were sad. "I think she's terrified he's going to leave her. I think she knows on some level that he doesn't love her the way she loves him, and she's desperately trying to lock him down before he figures it out." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Rachel. "Please tell me you left. Please tell me you're not still there." I silenced my phone and looked at Claire. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're documenting today, and I have this horrible feeling that someday maybe soon, Madison's going to need evidence of exactly who she married and what he did to her. Claire finished her champagne. Women need to protect each other, you know? Even when we don't realize we need protecting yet. She walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing there with half a glass of champagne and a growing sense that this wedding was going to implode spectacularly. The toasts started. Madison's father gave a sweet speech about watching his daughter find her partner. One of Jason's college friends told some generic story about their fraternity days. Then, Linda stood up. Jason's mother wasn't supposed to give a toast. It wasn't on the schedule I'd been given, but she stood anyway, champagne glass in hand, and the room fell quiet. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," Linda began, her voice steady but her hands shaking slightly. "Weddings are about family, about honoring the past while building the future, about taking something precious that's been entrusted to you and treating it with the care and respect it deserves." Jason's face had gone pale. He knew where this was going. "The ring Jason gave to Madison today," Linda continued, and you could hear a pin drop in that ballroom, "belonged to my mother. She wore it for 50 years of marriage. Through good times and hard times, through arguments and makeups, through everything that comes with truly committing to another person." She paused, looking directly at her son. "I gave that ring to Jason once before, for someone I thought would be part of our family. Someone who loved him completely and stood by him through some of his darkest days." Several people were exchanging confused glances now. Madison looked frozen. "But that engagement ended," Linda said quietly. "And I trusted Jason when he told me he'd keep the ring safe until he was truly ready to honor its legacy. I believed him when he said he understood what commitment really meant." Her voice cracked. "I'm still waiting to see if I was right to believe him." She sat down without the traditional toast. No congratulations, or may you have a lifetime of happiness. Just that loaded statement hanging in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled out. Jason stood up quickly, grabbed the microphone. "Thank you, Mom, for that interesting sentiment. How about we get the party started with our first dance?" The DJ, clearly uncomfortable, started playing their song. Jason pulled Madison onto the dance floor, and gradually the tension in the room dissipated as people focused on the picture-perfect couple swaying to some Ed Sheeran ballad. But I was watching Linda, sitting alone at her table, quietly crying into her napkin. And I was watching Stephanie, the college friend from earlier, staring at Jason with an expression I'd seen before. The look of someone realizing they don't know someone as well as they thought they did. I moved through the reception on autopilot, photographing cake cutting and bouquet tosses and drunk guests on the dance floor. Around 9 p.m., I was packing up my equipment when Jason cornered me near the exit. "Melissa, can we talk?" "I'm working." "You're packing up. It'll take 2 minutes." He grabbed my elbow and I pulled away sharply. He held up his hands. "I just want to explain." "Explain what?" "That you cheated on me, lied about it, kept my ring, and then hired me to photograph your wedding to make sure I knew exactly how replaceable I was." "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Jason?" My voice was louder than I intended. A few people near us turned to look. I lowered it to a harsh whisper. "I loved you. I planned a whole future with you. And you threw it away for her. Except apparently you threw it away even before you bothered to tell me we were done. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did it anyway." He ran a hand through his hair, that old nervous habit I used to find endearing. Now it just made me angry. "Madison doesn't know. About us. About how long we were together. I told her it was just a few months, casual. If you say anything..." "You'll what?" I challenged. "Sue me? For what? Telling the truth?" "I'll ruin your photography business. I'll leave reviews on every platform saying you were unprofessional, that you harassed us, that you tried to sabotage our wedding. I have friends in the industry. You'll never book another job in this city." There it was. The real Jason. Not the charming, sweet guy I'd fallen in love with. The manipulative, calculated one who always got what he wanted, no matter who he had to crush to get it. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I didn't love him anymore. I didn't even miss who I'd thought he was. I just felt sorry for Madison, who was about to spend the rest of her life wondering why she was never quite enough. "I'll send you the photos next week," I said calmly. "All of them, including the ones that clearly show your mother crying during her speech and you threatening your ex-fiancé at your own reception. You know, just standard wedding memories." I picked up my equipment bag and walked out. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up until 4 a.m. going through every photo I'd taken at Jason's wedding, importing them into Lightroom, organizing them chronologically. And that's when I saw it. I'd been so focused on the ring, on my own feelings, on Jason's betrayal, that I'd missed what was happening right in front of my camera the entire day. In the getting ready photos, Madison, checking her phone between every shot, her smile fading when she thought no one was looking. During the ceremony, Jason, glancing at his phone that he'd tucked into his jacket pocket. During his own vows. At the reception, Madison, watching Jason talk to Stephanie, the college friend who'd made that comment about his ex being too needy. The way Madison's face fell when Jason touched Stephanie's arm, leaning in close to whisper something. And then, the shot that made me zoom in until the pixels started breaking apart. It was from the reception, maybe an hour before Jason cornered me. I'd been photographing the dance floor, and I'd caught Jason and Stephanie in the background, near the bar. They were standing close. Too close. His hand was on her lower back. Her hand was on his chest. And they were looking at each other the way people look at each other when they're not just friends. The way Jason used to look at me, back when I thought he loved me. I grabbed my phone and called Rachel. It was 4:30 in the morning, but she answered on the second ring. "Did you kill him? Do I need to help you hide a body?" "I think he's cheating on Madison, with one of her bridesmaids." Silence. Then, "You're kidding." I have photos, multiple photos throughout the day where they're being way too familiar with each other. "Rachel, I think this has been going on for a while, maybe the whole time. Send me the photos, right now." I spent the next 20 minutes texting her screenshots. She called me back immediately. "Okay, so I did some very quick and possibly illegal social media stalking," Rachel said. And I could hear her typing furiously in the background. "Stephanie Monroe. She was in Jason's fraternity's sister sorority at college. They've been friends for 10 years. And Melissa? According to her Facebook relationship history, she was in a relationship until March of this year. March. The same month you and Jason broke up. Oh my God. There's more. Look at her Instagram stories from the past year. She's at the same charity gala where Jason supposedly met Madison. She's in the background of Madison's engagement announcement photos. She's in like every major event of their relationship. My brain was putting pieces together too fast. He didn't leave me for Madison. No, Rachel agreed. He left you for Stephanie. Madison was the cover story. The acceptable new girlfriend he could parade around while he was actually sleeping with his college best friend who'd just conveniently become single at the exact same time. Then why marry Madison? I don't know. Maybe Stephanie didn't want to get married? Maybe she's his backup plan? Maybe he's just a sociopath who likes collecting women? Rachel's voice was furious. The point is, Madison deserves to know. She just legally tied herself to this garbage human, and she's completely in the dark about who he really is. I looked at my laptop screen, at the hundreds of wedding photos staring back at me. Photos of Madison smiling, crying happy tears, dancing with her father, laughing with her friends. Photos of what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. I can't tell her, I said quietly. She'll think I'm just a bitter ex trying to ruin her happiness. Jason will convince her I'm lying, and he'll follow through on his threat to destroy my business. So, what are you going to do? I thought about Linda's toast, about Claire's warning, about the way Madison had looked at Jason when she thought no one was watching, like she was afraid he might disappear. I'm going to send her the wedding photos, I said slowly. All of them. Every single shot I took, including the ones I'd normally delete. The blurry ones, the test shots, the in-between moments, everything. Mel, I'm not going to tell her anything. I'm not going to point anything out. I'm just going to send her a complete, unedited record of her wedding day and let her see what I saw. I took a breath, and if she asks me questions, I'll answer honestly. But I'm not going to be the one to tell her that her husband is probably still in love with her bridesmaid. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. That's very morally gray of you. Yeah, well, I learned from the best. I spent the next 3 days editing wedding photos. I corrected exposures, adjusted colors, cropped and straightened. But I didn't delete anything. Every photo where Jason and Stephanie were standing too close. Every shot where Madison looked uncertain or sad. Every moment that told the real story of that wedding, I kept it all. On Thursday, I uploaded the entire gallery to my client portal. 847 photos. Way more than I'd normally deliver. I sent Madison an email with the access link and a simple message. Your wedding photos are ready. I've included everything from the day. Take your time going through them. She responded within an hour. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see them. I didn't hear anything for 2 days. Then, on Saturday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Melissa? It was Madison's voice, but it sounded different. Smaller. This is Madison Mitchell. Torres. I don't know what my name is anymore. My heart started pounding. Hi, Madison. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that? Yes. Did you know about Jason and Stephanie? I closed my eyes. I suspected, from the photos, but I don't know anything for certain. I confronted him this morning, showed him the pictures where they're practically groping each other at my wedding. You know what he said? Her voice cracked. He said I was being paranoid. That Stephanie is just a friend. That I'm seeing things that aren't there because I'm insecure. Madison. But then I called Stephanie, and she broke down crying and admitted everything. They've been sleeping together for 2 years. 2 years. The entire time Jason and I have been together. Madison let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He proposed to me with his ex-fiancé's ring while he was sleeping with my bridesmaid. What kind of person does that? Someone who doesn't deserve you, I said quietly. I found your name in his phone. He has a note from right before the wedding that just says, Melissa, neutralized. Like you were some kind of threat he had to manage. Did he threaten you? Yes. What did he say? That if I told you the truth about our relationship, or said anything to ruin his wedding, he'd destroy my photography business. Madison was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was steel. Can I hire you for something? What? I'm filing for annulment. I want to hire you to photograph our marriage ending. I want documentation of me removing his stuff from our apartment, me taking my name back, me reclaiming my life. I want photos of what liberation looks like. She paused. And I'm paying you double your wedding rate, using the joint account he thought I didn't know about. The one with Stephanie's name on the withdrawal history. I couldn't help it. I started laughing. You're serious? Dead serious? Jason wanted to use you to humiliate his ex? Fine. I'm going to use you to document what happens when women stop accepting the bullshit we're fed about forgiveness and second chances and working through rough patches. Sometimes the right choice is just to burn it all down and start over. When do you want to do the shoot? Is today too soon? I showed up at Madison's apartment, the one she'd shared with Jason for 8 months, 3 hours later. She'd already packed most of his stuff into garbage bags and piled them in the hallway. Linda was there too, helping. When she saw me, she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Thank you," Linda whispered, "for being professional enough to not walk away and human enough to not hide the truth." I photographed everything. Madison throwing Jason's clothes off their balcony. Linda removing her mother's ring from Madison's finger and putting it in her purse. Madison changing the locks. Madison crying, then laughing, then crying again. And finally, Madison sitting on her couch with a glass of wine, Linda beside her, both of them toasting to better choices and honest women. Those photos never went online. They were just for Madison. But a few months later, she posted one on Instagram, her hand with a fresh manicure, no ring, holding a cocktail. The caption read, "To everyone who warned me and I didn't listen. You were right. To everyone who stayed silent. Thanks for letting me figure it out on my own. And to my wedding photographer who documented the truth even when it was uncomfortable. You saved my life. Women supporting women isn't always pretty, but it's always worth it." She tagged me. My inbox flooded with messages from women asking if I was available to photograph their weddings, their divorces, their reclaiming my life parties. My business tripled within a month. Jason tried to leave negative reviews like he'd threatened. But Madison, Claire, Linda, even Stephanie, who was apparently so guilt-ridden she confessed everything to anyone who'd listen, they all left their own reviews explaining exactly what had happened. His smear campaign backfired so spectacularly that his own wedding became an internet cautionary tale about narcissistic men and the women brave enough to leave them. As for me, I learned something important. Sometimes revenge isn't about confrontation or exposure or making a scene. Sometimes it's about quietly documenting the truth and trusting that eventually, the truth will speak for itself. I still have those wedding photos. All 847 of them. I look at them sometimes and remember the girl I was that day, shaking with rage and heartbreak, trying to hold it together while photographing my own worst nightmare. And then I look at the photos from Madison's liberation shoot, at the way she's smiling with her whole face, free of pretense and performance, and trying to be enough for someone who was never going to appreciate her anyway. That's the story I'm proud to have told. Not the wedding, the aftermath. If you're reading this and you're in a situation where something feels wrong, where you're being gaslit or manipulated or made to feel crazy for trusting your instincts, trust them anyway. The truth always comes out eventually, and when it does, you want to be on the right side of it. What would you have done in my position? Left the wedding? Exposed Jason at the altar? Stayed silent? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe in women supporting women, even when it's complicated and messy, follow this page for more stories about choosing ourselves.